Welcome to our November community meeting. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining. If this is your first community meeting, what we typically do here is we go over the health and the stats of the open source community, as well as having some insights into what's coming next, both for OpenMetadata and Collate. And actually, today we are also super excited because we have a great community spotlight from FREENOW. We have Mehak here with us that she's going to show us how they are actually using OpenMetadata there. So stay tuned for that. And as you know, we are going to record this. We're going to upload everything into YouTube. So if you want to review some of the notes later on, or you want to share this with your colleagues, we are just going to let you know when everything is ready. With that being said, this is actually one of the greatest months that we've had in terms of open source developers and the open source growth, because we've got 10 new open source developers, and now we are up to 280 different people that have contributed into the project. We have grown 200 stars. We have grown more than 300 community members in Slack. For those of you that are not there, this is the best place that you can ask for help, interact with the community, ask for any new features that you would like to see, and just basically catch up on everything that is going on, everything that we are cooking in the project. And if you don't want to miss any new updates about releases or new community meetings, make sure that you are following us both on Twitter and Meetup. The numbers for this community meeting are also great. We have had more than 250 PRs in the last 4 weeks and almost 600 different posts in support, right? And not only this, but if we actually take a look at how active we are in the community, almost all of the questions that we get week by week, they are properly resolved. So if you are stuck, if you're trying a POC, if you don't know what's the best way to play with a certain feature, to get the ingestions running, to get everything up for you to move forward with OpenMetadata in your organization, make sure that you are reaching out, because chances are that either us or someone else from the community can actually help you get unblocked and moving forward. And not only this, but the actual rate of growth in the community, it's also growing. So not only we are getting bigger and bigger numbers in terms of users, we are also getting bigger and bigger numbers in terms of engagement. So if you're not there, if you're not on Slack yet, we're going to share the link. Make sure that you go in there, you say hi, and you're part of this great community that we're all building. And as I was saying, a great month for community contributions. We actually had 16 people, actual new people, as well as repeated contributors here, that they took the time to come here to either check on the issues that we had, or if you're already playing with it, you have a nice hand with Python or Java or React and TypeScript, and you just want to go and help us improve the product, feel free to reach out. We have the contribution channel in Slack in case that you have some questions on how you can get started. And we are more than happy to actually make sure that we can help you get bootstrapped with the developer environment, anything that you need in order for you to join this nice contribution list. So thank you to all of us for taking the time and to actually help us improve the product week after week. And from this list, we would also like to highlight Nicola, because he actually did a great job implementing a new connector that it's going to get out in the 1.6 release, the Exasol connector. So if you're using Exasol, you were wondering, oh, when is this going to reach into OpenMetadata? You can thank Nicola, because he did a great job into implementing this. And as far as we know, he's also working into getting some profiler capabilities in there as well. So stay tuned. And if you would like also to chip in, we have great documentation on how you can implement new connectors in order to keep checking the boxes of the services that you are using in your organization. And that being said, super excited to just pass the word to Mehak. So thank you very much for the availability. Thank you very much for the time. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Frederick. I will begin by sharing my screen. All right. Hopefully the screen is fully visible. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mehek Rohra. I'm a data platform engineer here at FREENOW, and today I'd be giving you an overview of the automated announcement process that we built around our data assets, utilizing open metadata features at its core. My agenda for today is to provide you with a short introduction about our organization, then dive into the data infrastructure at FREENOW that leads to the need for advanced announcement capabilities, provide you a short demo about the entire process and show you the workings, the technical architecture, and then wrap up with some insights. All right, let's go. So we're a multi-mobility service provider with taxis at our core. We have over 150,000 drivers with services including e-scooters, e-bikes, e-mopeds, car sharing, private hires, and so forth. And our aim is to always provide safe and sustainable transport for all people. We are currently in 9 countries, spread out over 150 cities, with partnership with major multi-mobility partners across Europe, and we continue to grow. Well, that's all about FREENOW. Before I actually dive into the announcement capabilities, let me quickly introduce you to the data infrastructure at FREENOW. So we follow a data mesh organization, and this is quite decentralized. So all data ownership lies with teams within their own domain. And at the same time, we have a centralized governance strategy and platforms where people can collaborate effectively and while managing their specific domains. Cumulatively speaking, our data teams oversee over 17,000 different tabular assets, which are spread out across 400 different schemas, and data is transferred or ingested through them, given with 300 different data pipelines and more. And this huge framework actually supports over 4,000 reports and dashboards within the company that are spread out across 3 different reporting platforms. And when it comes to such an ecosystem, let's imagine if you have a legacy asset that is cataloged somewhere and you'd like to deprecate this or update this with some information, then you have many dependencies downstream. And then the challenges that you have to address here is that you have to make sure that when such an update or a deprecation happens, that you effectively communicate this information in a consistent manner to all of the affected assets downstream. You are making sure that your stakeholders are receiving timely notifications, which are critical for them to make the updates. They are receiving periodic reminders so that they're given ample amount of time to be able to be aware of what's going on before the actual update takes place. So these are the initial challenges that had to be addressed while making sure that all of the information that is going out is sent from one place and is consistent when it is sent across different domains or to different owners. And that is exactly where open metadata comes into place, where all our data is actually cataloged. And we have 2 very cool features here. First one of them being the announcement feature, which you can use to notify your entire team for any different changes that come to your data asset. And this will be available as a banner on top of that data asset page in open metadata. And the second feature I would say is the lineage feature in open metadata, where you can actually track the flow of data across your asset, from upstream assets to the connected asset, and finally to downstream assets. And there you can actually map and see all of the dependencies. And these are super cool features. And what we try to do is take these and somehow thought of amplifying them into a global communication process. And that was our vision. So we have the announcements, we have a way to actually retrieve lineage and view it. And what we did actually is took Slack, which is our a major communication platform, integrated it with a RESTful service, including the platform OpenMetadata, and then amplified it to this communication process, where we would actually start our process with Slack and then somehow broadcast all of the information to all other platforms and OpenMetadata and to all of the teams. So that is exactly what we set out to build. And let me first actually give you a small overview of the technical architecture. So point A would be the Slack bot integration, where this is where you actually would give the command and start giving the place where you could actually start giving the command to add an announcement for an asset or an update that you would like to give. So you could think of it as you interacting with the bot, which is your front end, and the B part would then be the back end, which is our Flask app, which is then also communicating with OpenMetadata at all times, which is actually going to handle all of the logic, all of the interactions with the APIs, analyze all of your requests, and give appropriate responses. And that is a very surface level overview of the technical architecture. Let me actually give you a short demo of how this announcement process actually works. Okay, so here we are at the OpenMetadata platform for an asset we have, and we would like to add an update about this asset. And here we are in the announcements section, and we're not going to directly add announcements here. So we head over to Slack, we head over to our bot, and we add a command about wanting to add an announcement. And what this is simply going to do is actually send a post request to your backend, and simply this is going to trigger a series of functions. So let's see. We want to add an announcement, the intent has been recognized, and now we simply would like to continue. And once we have that, what you see here is an announcement form with details which are actually analogous to the announcement feature in OpenMetadata. So what you have here is a title of the announcement where you could actually put what's going on about the asset. Then you have the description of the announcement, which will let you know, okay, this has been updated or this has been deprecated. Then you have the validity period of the announcement, that is the start date of when this announcement is valid from. Then you have the end date. And then here you have some extra features, such as you can actually directly from this particular form also express your intent to broadcast this to other more important communication channels that you might have where you would want this information to go. And once all of this is done, we simply click on submit and wait. And this is where I would say the real magic happens here when you are actually giving two commands, filling one form with the announcement title and the description. What's happening at the back end is actually this data is being taken. Your back end is communicating with OpenMetadata to retrieve all information about the asset, including all of the dependencies and who owns those dependencies. And let's say this particular asset has about 300 plus dependencies. So the backend is going to retrieve that information via their APIs, process that information, and then pragmatically build one announcement for each particular owner and then send it, broadcast it all in one go. Plus, it's going to send that particular information to the channels that you selected. And last but not the least, it's going to also make sure that for 24/7 visibility, that announcement goes back to OpenMetadata. So you have one space, a centralized space, and you broadcast all of your information in a consistent manner from this particular space. Now let's look at actually some of the notifications that we received back from the bot. So for impact analysis, whatever lineage you have from OpenMetadata side is also sent to the announcement poster, and this will help them keep track of all of the dependencies. You will get notification about, okay, my announcement was successfully sent to all of the affected asset owners, and it was also successfully posted to OpenMetadata, which we can go and check. And voila, you see that the same announcement actually was also successfully posted to OpenMetadata. If we head back to Slack and let's just see how the actual announcements that were dynamically built for each owner would look like. I also received one of them. So the first thing we could see is we could also view it in OpenMetadata from that particular Slack bot message. And it's here. So it's consistent visibility and 24/7 visibility for everybody. And then using some Slack formatting, using JSON blocks, we simply make it look like a proper announcement. And here we have the date posted, the author, the actual announcement, the validity period, and then finally an FYI section, which is dynamic for every owner, informing them of their affected asset. And another extra cool feature here is a reminder feature. So if any owner actually clicks on that button, this is also recorded towards the backend. And within a week, this particular announcement as a notification will also be sent to this owner. So periodic reminders will be taking place until, of course, they are stopped or until the validity period comes to an end. So that's all, I think. Yes, so one central space and all information is traveling from one central space to every platform that you would like for it to travel to. And because it is recorded, it is very useful to later check and align with our governance strategy. And that's all. It's time to wrap it up from my side. My takeaway message from here is that we're not trying to communicate more, but we're trying to actually communicate in a better and in an efficient manner. And this demo that you just saw tells us that, okay, so there is full visibility in the platform where we are cataloging all of our data. We're making sure that there is a centralized communication hub where every information can travel from. You have improved asset tracking. So the announcement poster has information about all of the dependencies, and that is finally leading up to an enhanced communication process. This one announcement that we just put for a single asset impacted up to 300 more assets downstream and all of their owners. And not just that, all of your assets that are then present in open metadata will be impacted by this particular process, and it will all be automated. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mehmet, for the presentation. It's always great when we see all of these innovative cases on, okay, how can we make the most of the API? How we make the most of having all of this centralized context, in this case, in the lineage, right? So as you said, one asset, 300 impacted pieces downstream. That's great that you're actually able to include this process seamlessly on Slack. So congratulations on the development. And if anyone has any questions or any comments on Mehak, please feel free to use the chat. And while we'll move on, or you can also reach out to her and her team directly in Slack for us to move the conversation forward. So thanks again. And
Thank you.
for the rest of the meeting today, we are actually going to go over some of the. It's always hard to get the highlights for a release. We always get nervous on, okay, which pieces are the ones that we want to show. So hopefully we will be actually picking up the ones that you think that are the most interesting. But in the end, this means that release 1.6 is getting closer. Just as of now, we have more than 900 commits versus 150, and we're including governance workflows, ER diagrams, observability dashboards. We're including a lot of connectors, both in open source on top of Exasol. Thanks again, Nicola, as well as connectors on the Collate side. We're including metrics, search, RBAC, and most of these pieces we are also going to show and demo to you today. And what is also interesting for today is that we have just have the 1.6.0 release candidate out fresh of the oven. So it's there for you to take it for a spin. It would be great if you can actually upgrade your dev or your test instances. Let us know if you find any issues with the migrations. Let us know any feedback that you have with this early preview of what's coming out here. Just please, please, please do not upgrade prod yet. This is a release candidate. This is not the final release. We are testing. We are checking the rough edges. We are still working on that, but it's already in a place where you can actually start playing with all of these new features that we have prepared. So it's out. It's already there on GitHub for you to start playing with it. And that being said, let's jump directly into the demos that we have. And we'd like to start by showing that we have added for Collate ER diagrams, right? And ER diagrams, this is actually something that we have been asked quite a few times. And in the end, they are actually bringing this great way of visualizing how different tables are connected with each other within a database. We are actually preparing these ER diagrams both at the schema and at the table level, and they are a great way to actually make sense of the structure, make sense of the shape of your data, and it actually unlocks a new and very interesting way of discovering new assets by association, of actually trying to figuring out if you are trying to build a query, okay, which tables do I need to join here? How do I make sense of this data that I need in order to build a dashboard? And not only that, but similar to the lineage, we are also bringing this UI editor that will allow you to add, update, or remove the relationships. So let's see how this is looking like. We have here in Sandbox Beta our sample sales data for MS SQL. And you can see how we have this ER diagram tab directly on the database schema. And it's showing me all of the different tables that we have here. I can click on them. I can highlight the relationships. I can try to make sense on how this employee table is related to the person table. We can actually make sense directly from here about the constraints, if it's primary key, if it's null, not null, all of these different informative pieces. And not only that, it's very easy for us to just click, figuring out further details about the tables that might be interesting for us. We can then just jump, as we already can do in the lineage, to the rest of the tables. Once I'm at the table level, I can also get back into this ER diagram view to actually zoom in on the relationships that this table have. And not only that, but we can also edit. We like to edit things via the UI, right? So we can come, we can actually make sense, we can see these relationships, we can update the cardinality of the relationships, we can update pieces if they are not populated properly, and we can also add any new tables and start bridging the gap with the rest of the pieces that we have. And all of this comes already automated for you via this metadata ingestion workflow. So we were actually already picking up all of these pieces about the primary keys, about the foreign keys and whatnot. So we expanded these features to pick up the right cardinality, and we expanded as well on the UI to give you this nice, useful way to actually make sense, to actually organize your thoughts about everything that's going on with your data. And we are not only stopping at this nice UI view in case that you want to see a more condensed way on which objects you have and the relationships that the columns have among each other. You can also come into the table view just to actually focus on what might be interesting for you at this specific table level. So we are super excited to getting that out. We are super excited to bringing on the table this new way to visualize and discover and make sense of your data. The second piece that we are also bringing here for Collate are actually the governance workflows, and we are super excited about.
Just to add a couple of things on the ER diagrams, I don't think we show the edit capabilities. Like if you're using a data warehouse where there may not be your constraints like a primary key and foreign key, which may traditionally exist in transactional databases, you can edit and make these connections to other tables in case of maybe BigQuery, which doesn't have any of constraints. So if you're using BigQuery or any other data warehouse that doesn't have the constraints, but you're imagining those constraints logically, you can codify here and have this kind of ER diagram represent how the tables are kind of linked to each other, not just the lineage, but actually through the business, the relationship between the tables.
Yeah, correct, exactly. And as you can see, the same, let's say, editor, the same experience that we already have for the lineage that I'm sure that you're already familiar with. You can use it just to keep adding these edges and to keep playing with these relationships out. Awesome. So thanks for the inputs there. And now, yes, going back into the governance workflows, we have actually built a new internal governance workflow framework, right? Because we understand that in the end, different organizations, they have different needs, right? We have already out of the box different workflows that we are building. For example, how do you approve a glossary term, or how do you request changes into the descriptions or tags or whatnot on your data assets? So we actually saw this need about how can we generalize all of these different places that people would need to interact with each other, that people would actually even want to customize the approval process. How can we make sure if some pieces are actually ready to be reviewed or not? And based on these needs, we have developed this new governance workflow framework. And with this, let me start showing you how it looks like. In Collate, you will see this Workflows tab directly under Governance, and we have already started to migrate some of the workflows that we have already there, for example, this glossary approval workflow, into this new framework. And thanks to this new framework, now it's also super, super easy to visualize and understand how this process is looking like for you. So sometimes we also got these questions that, hey, when are pieces going into draft or in review or in approved or whatnot? So now we can actually answer all of these questions directly, visualizing the shape of these diagrams, the shape of this flow on how the information is actually going to move in these pieces. So if we go and navigate now on shape of this new glossary approval workflow built on this new framework, you already know that first we are going to check if we have a reviewer, right? Then if we don't have a reviewer, we are going to automatically approve the glossary term. But if we have a reviewer, we are actually now adding a new status, which is, how do we know if a glossary term is ready to be reviewed or not? And in this case, you can actually play and you can actually change these conditions where out of the box, you are saying, hey, if a glossary term has a description, then it's good enough. But maybe you want to actually come here and keep adding other properties. Maybe you want to make sure that some custom property is being informed. Maybe you want to make sure that it has an owner, that it has some specific tags. So you can actually play with the properties and with the shape of the glossary term in this case, so that you can actually make use on, okay, we have some glossary terms that we are working on. They are not ready to be reviewed. They are going to stay in draft. And once we are following all of these rules that make sense within our organization, then automatically the term is going to become to the in review status, and the typical approval task for the reviewer is going to open. So let's take a look at how this looks like. So I have my customer success glossary here. In this case, I don't have any reviewers. I don't have anything yet. So I'm actually expecting that if I add a new term without reviewers, the term is automatically approved, which makes sense. But now what happens if I add the admin user as a reviewer and I try to add a new term? Now, by default, this is going to be in draft, but now under the hood, this workflow has actually kicked in, and it's actually checking, hey, does my term have a description? And in this case, it does have a description because we just added it. So if I refresh my page, I also want to make sure that I'm seeing here my in review status. I can see how my glossary term has actually this new in review state. And if I check, there's also the task that the admin can use to approve this glossary term. So now I approved it, we are happy, and we are ready to go. Now, what I can also do, I can come and I can say, hey, I'm going to change the rules of the game because I want to make sure that whoever is creating a new glossary term, they are also informing this custom property that I created before that it's the legal entity. So I just want to make sure that it has some fields in there. I'm going to save the configuration. And now I can come back into my glossary and I'm going to add a new term. By default, I'm not adding any custom property, right? So I can refresh, I can refresh, I can refresh as many times as I need, that this term is actually going to stay in draft. I'm still working on it until I come here and I add something into my legal entity. And then again, my workflow is going to kick in. My workflow is going to say that, hey, since we added the extension, this is ready to be reviewed. So if I change here, I'm going to refresh. Now, again, this is on review state. The task has been open. We can come, we can accept it, and we can move on. So as you can see, this brings a lot of flexibility on which steps do we want to follow within our organization to make sure that whenever we're creating new glossary terms, they are actually ready to be approved. And not only that, but now if we check the configuration of this glossary approval workflow, we see that, okay, this is running on top of glossary terms, and it's actually being triggered in two different events. It's triggered if the term is created, but also if the term is updated. And this unlocks another new level of power here, because if now I remove my custom property, basically now here I'm breaking the rules, right? We were saying, hey, I actually need this custom property to be there. But if I remove it, automatically the workflow, whenever it kicks in, it's going to say, hey, this term that it was previously approved, now it's in draft because we changed something, we broke the rules that we set, and now we have to get back. Someone will need to come and reapprove it again once it's ready to be reviewed once more. So all of this is now possible thanks to this new glossary approval workflow that we have. So you can actually play and customize all of these pieces from Collate, but even those of you that are directly using OpenMetadata, you might not be able to play and change these pieces directly from the UI, but still this is the workflow that we're deploying out of the box in there for you. So you're also getting these terms being created and these terms being updated, actually kicking off and moving back the term into draft, just to make sure that all of your governance processes are following the right steps in there. Moreover, going back into the workflows list, you can see how we have added the dashboard and the table certification workflow, because we thought, hey, now we have this framework, we can build more things, we can enable more use cases. So one other thing that we have actually built out is there we go, the certification process. So we have created out of the box 3 new certification layers. So one asset can be either bronze or silver or gold. And this process is actually going to help us identify when an asset should belong to each of these levels. So we are creating this automation that will actually make sense of this holistic view of each of your data assets. It will actually check all of these different properties and move and create the assets, assigning the right certification level. So these are the steps that we are again bringing out of the box. Those of you that are using Collate, you will be able to play again with these rules, to play with this configuration, actually changing which pieces do you want to check for each of the levels. In this case, for us, the default process that we are deploying here, it's quite simple. We are checking if the assets have owners or description, and then based on the tier, we are actually going to automatically classify pieces between either they are not certified, they have nothing to check on them, or they are going to be set as bronze, silver, or gold. And if we take a look at some of the tables that I have prepared. In this case, I have my customers table, which has the ownership, it has the tier one, and it has the description. So the workflow has assigned it to gold, and it places the icon very nicely here so that it's very, very easy for any user to actually see, have we worked on this asset? Is this ready for me to use? Can I actually trust the end-to-end metadata that this asset have directly by placing this certification badge, this certification stamp next to the name? And we can see how other assets, in this case, this one is silver because the tier, it's tier 2. And I have also my sensitive customers that since they do not have any tier, it's going to stay in bronze. So this certification assets, they are there, and you can play with them directly via the API. But if you are using Collate, you can actually go and play with this workflow that we have created. And again, this for us is just the first step. We're going to continue to expand on this feature to eventually allow users to actually create new workflows and further customize the shape of the workflows that we are bringing out of the box on the instances. And with that being said, I think I'm going to pass already the word to Teddy, who is going to show us some nice goodies on the observability side. So thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Barry, for that introduction. So let me share my screen with you. Okay. Perfect. Can you see my screen? All right, awesome. All right, thanks, Barry, for the introduction. So we'll follow the same structure. We'll go over a few major features that we're shipping as part of the 1.6 release on the observability side. Of course, we have also worked on a lot of smaller improvement to make the flow and the functionality even better than what we have today in 1.5. On the observability side, for the Collate side, we've introduced observability dashboard. So that's something that we've heard quite a lot from our users and across different organizations, the ability to track and view the health of the data platform as a whole, but also having actionable insight available at your fingertips. And with the observability dashboard, that's what we are introducing in 1.6, where you'll have that ability to quickly visualize the health of your data platform and slice your insight by tags, tier, or ownership. We've also made some improvement in the observability overview. Whenever you are accessing an entity today, an asset in the platform, you now have a health indicator to that asset with additional metrics that allow you to have information about how trustworthy your asset is at a glance. And we've also made some improvement around the lineage to have a better visualization of the failure path inside your data lifecycle, so that you can quickly go from a source as a consumer all the way up to the root cause and be able to quickly fix any issue that are arising. On the alert side of the observability functionality, we have introduced a full alert debuggability functionality, where you'll now be able to test your alert, but also visualize any type of payload and events that happen. And we've also made some design improvement to the alert message so that you have better information that are available to you directly from your Slack or email or other type of tooling. So let's move on to the platform directly. So here we have an example of the collate data quality observability dashboard, where you'll be able to view different dimensions. So you have now the ability to track the coverage of your data assets so that you can see how many of your data assets are covered by data quality inside your platform. And among those covered data quality assets, how many of them are healthy. You'll also be able to have that visualization per data quality dimension. And of course, once the general availability release is available, you'll be able to click on those dimensions and have a list of all of those functionality. And similarly, you have now the ability to track the performance of your team when it comes to incident management, resolution, and acknowledgement. So now if we move on to the visualization of the overview tab. So if I navigate to my users table, now we'll have an indicator at the top of my table showing me that there is some ongoing issues happening with that entity. So as a consumer, I can click on that icon, and that will bring me to that overview tab. And here we can see we don't have any data quality defined for that specific table, but what we see is that we have one of the upstream assets feeding into that table that does have a failure. So I can go ahead and click on my lineage, and now I can see that my alert entity indeed does have some incident that are feeding into my silver user table and then feeding into my user gold table. So from there, I can simply navigate to that specific entity and go to my profiler and data quality and have that overview of what incidents are ongoing, and simply click on it and visualize it and understand what test failure are failing and go from there to resolve any type of ongoing issues. All right, with that being said, I will now pass the presentation back to Perry.
Actually, I think that it's Harsha's turn. Do you want to show the metrics and search, Harsha?
Yeah, just a second. I'm going to share two windows right now. Hopefully you guys can see it.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to go to first the metrics entity. Thanks, Perry and Terry. And hopefully, you guys got excited about those features. Now onto the boring part, which is metrics. Now, who doesn't want to kind of talk about metrics, right? So previously, so far, our users and community, including customers, used to use glossary terms. We have multiple business glossaries that you are intent with the multiple business glossaries is for you to kind of standardize terminology across the companies, right? But we saw most of our users also using not just the terminology, but for the metrics as well. Like metrics could be, hey, what is the customer acquisition cost? What is the revenue stream per day? Or what is customer churn rate? Whichever common metrics that the entire company is looking forward to, kind of having a major understanding of what goes into this calculation, what tables are we using, how are we calculating the metric, what is the formula, and so on. So they used to do it through the glossary terms. Although glossary is great for you to kind of get to your terms, your descriptions, ownership, and all of that, but not really meant for tracking the metrics itself. So in 1.6, we introduced metrics. Metrics is a way to kind of create a trackable metric that maybe I will choose a better one here. Engagement rate. This could contain, what is the description? In this case, engagement rate, we have a formula. This is that you can directly edit into your description, add it, and add more details around this. Then you have expression. What is the code? Maybe you're using a stored procedure in Snowflake to calculate it. Maybe you're running a report on a monthly or a daily basis. Any SQL, Java, any of this code you can document here. So from a user perspective, they can just come here, understand what goes into engagement rate, what is the code looks like, and also more importantly, I can track the lineage part of it. For example, engagement rate is actually being going to the team customer and so on. So in a way, it gives you a more encompassing way to kind of understand what is a metric. You have other things also, metric type, metric unit of measurement, granularity, have a detailed description of it, have an expression, could be in any language that you're choosing, and have lineage from an end-to-end perspective, how this metric is tracking in the company. So this is a feature, again, this will be available in open source as well under the governance metrics. Again, if you have glossary terms that are there, you can export that and put it into metrics today. Now moving on to more exciting things here is from a long time. Today, if you go to Sandbox, even we have a very detailed access control, which is roles and policies. Just to kind of refresh that memory there. In a policy, you can have a rule. Rule can have condition. For example, data consumer policy allows me to edit description, glossary terms, tags, and tier if I'm the owner of that particular asset. Edit tier is kind of denied. View all only allowed if I'm an owner of this, right? But so far, this permissions works when you go to the asset page. For example, I go as a data consumer, click on dim address clean, and these permissions only apply when you go to this page. But as a user, if I go to the explore page, I get all the details, irrespective of if I have permissions or not. So this is a long feedback that we are getting. Our intent initially was for everyone to kind of discover the data assets, at least at the metadata level, right? So if I'm an analyst coming in new into organization, I have no clue what tables exist. I have been tasked to build a customer churn rate. I should be able to at least discover the data sets and then ask for permissions and understand what schema it has. But in some cases in organizations where, hey, we have strict permissions around our data, we don't want to give even the metadata lookups for other users. With this new release, you can go to the settings under the preferences, you can go to search, enable roles and policies in search. And for this example, we can go back to settings, access controls, policies. Let's look at the organization policy. Right now, organization policies gives me allow for everything. So I'm going to log in another browser with my regular user who is a data consumer. So now I should see pretty much all data because I'm getting all the assets allowed. So I'm going to make this a little more tricky. In this case, allow only if I'm the owner or might belong to a team that is the owner of those assets. Now I updated these organization policies. Now if I not this page, but rather this page. Now the view is changed. I'm only getting the asset that belongs to applications. Applications is part of the, this user is part of that particular applications team. So I'm only getting the asset that belongs to this team. So now I'm going to change a little more lenient, maybe. So let's see if I want to do match any tag. So in this case, maybe I'll change this to we can also do more complex conditions, like maybe is owner. One of these conditions true, I should be able to see the data. So I updated this. Now if I refresh this page, now I'm getting a lot more data, even though the data that I don't belong to, because it's matching one of these tags. Personal data, personal. For example, we talked about BI sensitive. And even though I'm not part of this user, now I have an access to this through the explore page. So again, going back to just wrap up. So any condition that you're defining in your access control policies today, you can go into settings, go into the preferences, search, enable the roles and policies in search. It will automatically apply and try to give the assets in the explore page that I'm available to allowed to read through the access control and policies. I think that covers my demo. Yeah, anything else? Back to you, Pere.
Oops, sorry, it was a mute. I was saying that awesome, but thank you for that. And there is actually, since we need to go already on the Q&A, maybe we can start with the questions that we got around the metrics. So maybe Harsha, this one also for you could be, how do we as a community differentiate a glossary term from a metric? What makes one different from the other?
Yeah, so for us, glossary terms are common terms that are used. Maybe you have an account. Account is properly understood by everyone in the company, but when you go into the tables, the way your engineers might be creating the account, probably ACCT as a abbreviation, right? So from a user's perspective, they understand the account. When you go to the actual asset, it's kind of renamed in a different ways. So standardize the naming of it across different columns, objects, dashboards, or whatnot, so that I go there. Oh, this is ACCT, means actually account. I can overlap, hover over the glossary term. I can get the full definition of account. Now coming to the metrics, and glossary terms are there to kind of give you more about documentation, right? Hey, this is how the account is being created. These are the reference links. These are the synonyms that we use in the company, and a way to kind of get everyone in the company to understand what this particular term means, what are the additional names that it may have. Whereas coming back to metric is a way for the business to kind of move and achieve goals, KPIs or whatnot. So you can see some of the overlaps. What is this metric means? What is the design behind this? What is the goal of it? The key differentiation for me is, hey, what is the code behind it? What is the additional question that you may ask in terms of metric? What is the KPIs that we are setting? What is the code behind it? What are the assets that is actually being built on? Whereas glossary term is not necessarily built like that. Metric has a lineage, clear lineage, saying that, hey, this particular metric, this particular report is actually being generated based on this metric. This metric is actually being read from these 3 tables that we actually built from our raw data. So more of a lineage question, more of a understanding of what is a code question and what is the granularity of the metric, more on the technical side of the things than just on the description only. Hope that answers.
Awesome, thanks. And then just to clarify, yes, both the metrics and these role permissions on the search, they are going to be available on open source. And we still have a few minutes, so we have time for more questions. Unless we were so clear that everything is already understood the first time.
Yeah, and just to let you know, there are hundreds, if not 200s of things that we are improved, fixed. We don't have enough time to talk about all of these things. There is a question about custom properties, I think maybe 30 minutes back. There was a question about custom properties in the context of workflows. Like if you want to say that, hey, this custom property should only have A, B, C allowed values. Now we have a custom property called enum, where you can predefine, you can create whatever the custom property and predefine the values for that. And that will only the values that are allowed to kind of check in. So these are the improvements that we have done. There is obviously the notification reportability. I don't know if you've shown that or not to an extent. Yeah.
So here you can check all of the different values, validate if they are multi-select or not. Also the UI, it's way better. Now we can make sense of the different types way more easily. And yes, a study was showing here in the alerts. I think that maybe this one.
Yeah, I think in the support recent events, if you go to the recent event, it should show you something.
There we go.
Yeah. I think this is the question that we get quite often in support. Hey, my email configured, I'm not getting any emails. I configured Slack, I'm not getting Slack events. You can go to the recent events. It shows you how many of these are actually able to deliver to your destination that you have configured, how many are pending. That is, it is a queue mechanism, internal queue mechanism, and how many are like pending to read and deliver. So you get a lot more details and kind of do a self-driven work by yourself.
Then also, are metrics a first-class data citizen now searchable and filterable? Yes, they are. So actually here, if I look for, I think it was engagement. I cannot write engagement rate. I see here all of my metrics, either the engagement rate or the ones that are related to engagement rate. So yes, you can play directly with those. Is there a target date for the 1.6 release? So early December, we should be able to have that.
Great question. We just released a 160 RC1. Please, if you have an installation that you're running in production and staging, if you have it, don't upgrade the production, but definitely on staging, give it a try. Let us know if you run into any migration issues and whatnot. We test quite a bit. We have thousands of tests, but we also a limited team, small team, and nothing beats a huge community like OpenMetadata giving us feedback. So it probably won't take more than 30 minutes of your day, and everything is kind of auto run. Take the RC1 bits, point to your staging at a developer database that you already have OpenMetadata on, try to upgrade.
And again, do not upgrade prod yet. Please wait for the official announcement. Dev and test, yes. Prod, not yet, please. Or at least take a backup first if you are brave enough.
And just to add other things, we also added export APIs that are async now. So if you have thousands of assets, which probably would have taken a lot of time, you can just hit the API. It will asynchronously compose your export and imports and send you a notification back through the WebSocket. Great improvement for anything that you have large number of tables and whatnot. Similarly, search reindex improved, I think, in our test at least 5 times in terms of the performance, 5 to 6 times. So again, hundreds of data assets, not a problem. Just give it a try. Again, amazing improvements coming through into 1.60. We can't wait to get this to your in your hands.
And yes, Harsha said a bunch of new things that are coming in. Now we try to highlight here the sexier ones to get everyone engaged. But I'm sure that when you start playing with that, you're going to see tons and tons of improvements in your overall experience. And yes,
and, yeah,
the slides.
I think go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, so the slides, they will be available. So we have recorded everything. We're going to publish the slides and the links to YouTube and everything. Just give us 1 day, 2 days max. So by the end of this week, we're just going to ping on Slack with all of the links in there. And sorry, Harsha, you were saying?
I don't know if you touched based on the connectors, but there is Open API connector. We added API services, if you remember from 1.5, where you can also document your API, like microservices that are probably taking your REST APIs, putting into transitional database. From there, the data flows into your data warehouses. End to end, through the lineage also, you can discover that. Now with Open API connector, you can point us to your Open API spec. We can automatically bring those as REST APIs in version 1.6.
Awesome. So we are just in time. Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for the great questions. If there's any other topic that you would like to discuss with us, please make sure that you are reaching out in Slack. We can continue the conversation. Thanks again to Mehak for the great presentation. It was a very cool implementation, seeing how Slack and OpenMetadata and everything was falling together. So if you also want to keep engaging with her, feel free to reach out in Slack. And enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in 1 month. Thank you very much. See you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
See you in Slack.